The season has begun, people, in what has been one of the most unbelievable ways for the Buffalo Bills. In what was seen as a historic comeback on Sunday night, the Buffalo Bills take down the Baltimore Ravens 41-40. A game that many thought was lost was eventually won, which is why tonight's tagline is "It's not Jover till we say it's Jover," because the Buffalo Bills proved that they have the comeback gene as early as week one, and we will have to see for the rest of the year if they can maintain it. But one thing is for sure, the vibes are definitely better than what they could have been as we head into week two against the New York Jets. And tonight's episode, we will recap all of the great things that we saw in that matchup with Baltimore and the not great things that we also saw in the matchup against Baltimore, and preview the upcoming matchup with the Jets as we are looking at a team with a very similar formula to what Baltimore brought that could impact the Bills negatively, but maybe not all hope is lost. And I'm really excited to talk about it all with you all here tonight on this week's episode of Under Review. Enough of me yapping. Let's roll that intro.
Previous play will go under review.
And once again, good people, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. My name is Joe DeRosa, and I already gave you my tagline for tonight. And like I said before, we're going to talk about that awesome matchup against the Ravens and preview the upcoming matchup against the New York Jets. And when I say we, I never just mean me. I have a guest this week, someone who I owe a lot to because he found me. He is the reason that I am here at Cover One. If you like me, then you can be thankful that he did it. If you don't like me, then you could blame him for doing it. But it is the one and only Mr. Aaron Quinn, one half of the C1 Buff podcast. Aaron, thank you so much for being here. It's been a while. It's good to get you back on here.
Appreciate you having me on, man. You got to stop introducing me that way. I get more hate mail and threats for bringing you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm super happy to have you on the team, man. But no, you don't owe me anything. You're doing a great job all on your own here. And appreciate you bringing me on the show whenever you get a chance.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, your insight is always welcome here. Again, love the work that you and Greg do every single week.
Oh, but people might not know, a little inside scoop. You and I head to head here in the Cover One Fantasy Dynasty here starting this evening. I got robbed here this week, losing to Mr. Chris Chouse of the Cover One Fantasy YouTube channel. So a fantasy guru who dominates our league. I thought I had him up against the ropes this week, but now I'm coming, man. I can't lose back-to-back games. We know the statistics of teams that lose back-to-back and get in the playoffs, Joe. I got to get in the playoffs this year.
Well, I can happily say that my week one was the polar opposite. I don't want to say dominated, but I had a pretty good size victory over Mr. Greg Vorse, who thought about blowing his team up before the season began. But when I looked at it, I'm like, I don't think your team's that bad. But
yeah, did you tell him not to? Because I'll tell you the reason he was making that, and I think it is, I'm not confirmed this, but the reason I think he was saying about blowing his team up was I had a big offer on the table because he's got Bijan, right?
Yeah.
I think it was like Bijan, maybe Burrow. Does he have Burrow too?
I'm going to pull this up.
Anyways, you know what to do this for your crowd. I feel bad for your crowd. They don't care about our fantasy. But anyways, I made him some like massive deal of like trying to basically, I think, take Pitts, Burrow, and Bijan off his team. And I gave him everything I had, like basically besides Jaden Daniels, and he was like, I can't do it. I was like, come on, dude, your team's not that good. Blow it up.
I feel like you're a terrible influence when it comes to trades on the table. I can already picture the DMs you send. It's like, oh, dude, but think about this. You could get this many first round picks in 2027.
Well, and I sell myself. I give up my picks, and I'm like, hey, my plan's not till 2028, so you're probably going to get a good pick out of it. Like, I'm going to lose the next couple of years. That's my pitch to everybody. So I hope the rest of the league's not watching this because they're going to be on to me.
Yeah, maybe, but that's okay. It's still a ton of fun, and we will see how this week's matchup goes. But before we move on to this week's actual matchup for the Buffalo Bills against the New York Jets, I want to just put a bow on the conversation with the Bills and the Ravens matchup, because I know it's been talked about on our network and many Bills content creators over, but it truly is one of the most memorable games you could argue in Bills history, especially when you think about the fact that it was the final home opener in Orchard, well, not in Orchard Park, I'm sorry, in the current stadium. And I think that had a lot of gravity. And it's one of those wins that even if, whatever the season may become, whether it's a Super Bowl victory, whether it isn't, you'll always look back on it as one of those just like nexus events, especially with the fact that a lot of history in that stadium, good and bad, you just kind of ring off the final year with such a monumental win against a really good team. And there were a lot of highs, there were a lot of lows, definitely significant lows with the running defense. And you could argue just lows with some offensive lulls in the first half. But the team did find a way to come back. Josh Allen just turned on a different gear and went nuclear. And there was a lot of positives to take away from that I can share. But Aaron, I want to turn it back to you. Positives and negatives, your biggest takeaways from this past matchup against the Ravens that really stood out to you, the ones that you feel like you need to share.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you nailed it. As a fan, this is definitely one I'll remember. And as somebody that covers this team and does post-game shows, I've been at this for, I don't know, 8 years now, 9 years. This will be one of the ones I remember the most of having to get on and celebrate that game and kind of talk through it with Bills fans. I won't lie to you, Joe. Like, this one's a weird one. And we just had Connor Rogers on our show this week previewing the Jets game. And the Jets were kind of in the opposite boat of like, questioning how they lost that game because everything said they should have won that game, right? Like if you're a Jets fan, you feel like, man, how did we let that one slip away? Where I was the opposite. I did a post-game show, went through every drive, rewatched it the next day in all 22, and I still am not totally sure how the Buffalo Bills won that game, right? Like they weren't the better team on the day. They made the big plays when they needed to make the big plays, and they were almost perfect in situations where you needed perfection multiple times. You needed everything to work almost perfect, and even in the plays they didn't execute perfectly, the luck fell their way. And
yes,
so it was a little bit of destiny, which I'm not going to take that away from a team. We've seen so many countless great teams and great runs have the ball have to bounce their way a time or two. So sometimes you need that luck to kind of follow you throughout the season. Hopefully that's an omen of things to come this year where the ball sort of just bounces the Bills' way when they need it to. It would be nice to turn that luck on in January, but that's my first, fan instinct is I'm trying to take that as a good omen for the Bills this year, that when they need it the most, the luck will bounce their way or the turnover will come. But I would be overly homer and overly biased if I wouldn't say there's real concerns baked into that game, and that Sean McDermott would probably say we're resulting in kind of scheming, going past some of those because we're still high on the victory of that game. And when you do have Josh Allen, you feel like, that hides so many blemishes that even if the defense continues to struggle at times, God, if Josh can come back from 15 points in 6 minutes, like what can't he do? All we got to do is have put on the cape and anything is possible. And so I think it puts the fan base in a weird spot. You're going into this week. I thought you brought up a good point and I think Ed Oliver spoke on it in his press conference, although we can talk about Ed in a second, but of the defense getting that second chance here this week. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm taking away from past week is the people that were the most concerned about the defense might be who they think they were. The loudest critics on the internet who are like, safety is some of the worst safety in the league, and these positions are huge worries. They all looked super right on week one. And now what we have to determine is that just a mix of, hey, they played maybe the best offense in football, definitely the most dynamic in terms of what they present to a defense in terms of scheming. And I thought Eric did a nice job of showing the Bills did come up with some answers as the game went on, but it was a constant game of cat and mouse between Monken and Babich, and sometimes Monken had the upper hand, and he's going to do that to you. And it was really 55 minutes of the game, it felt like they had the upper hand. But was it just that you're playing the Ravens, you're playing in week one, things are taking a little bit longer. I'm not sure. There were some things in that tape that I don't know that I can chalk up to a week one stuff. Linebackers look pretty slow to me, Joe. Safeties were taking bad angles. A lot of that stuff was, I need to see here in the next couple of weeks. I can be patient, allow this to develop. I need to see positive development here coming over the next couple of weeks, though. It can't continue to look like it did.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that the defensive week one performance, to just put it bluntly, was bad. I don't think you could say anything other. They surrendered 40 points, and it
Yeah.
took the will of the MVP to literally carry. I don't want to say carry the team on his back, but
I mean, the defense
basically go.
made the stops they needed to in spots that it need. I don't want to sound like a homer for the defense, but
No,
they
no,
did.
and I agree with you. I do agree with that, but it's almost like climbing out of the hole you put yourself in, which to me
Yes.
is like you did redeem yourself with the late turnover on Derrick Henry. That put you right back in the game, but you were in that spot because you surrendered so many explosive plays.
Sure.
And I think that, it took just an absolutely cerebral game from Josh Allen, literally in the most unprecedented turf, because we saw it. They're the first team ever to win a game in regulation when
You
they're
could just
down
stop
by
at first team.
15.
First
They
team
are the
win.
first team ever. He's the
You could just
first
stop
quarterback ever.
there. Yeah.
In the down by 15 in the final 6 minutes of the game, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think that
I just hope
it is. Oh, go on.
I was gonna say I hope that doesn't put any type of like complacency on this team in games
Right.
where it's like we can afford to maybe not show up. I don't think it will.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I do think they're humans, and you start to lean into it's like, well, we have Josh, so like no matter how bad it's getting, Josh will pull us out of this, and you saw it on display.
Yeah, which is the exact opposite of what really this organization has tried to implement over the past couple of years when you look at how they've attacked the roster. And I think that's a big point to be made, because when you have Josh Allen, it can mask blemishes. But I don't think the team, at least the organization, when it comes to roster construction, has ever been complacent in having Josh Allen, as much as execution of what they've attempted to do hasn't always been spotless. And that's any team in the league. But going into your points about the game, starting with the negative, really the defense. I think that there are a few things that can be true. And I said this on Twitter and I'll say it here. It's week one. Week one, many people call it a liar. And I do agree with that to some extent. Week one is ugly. Your team, the chemistry, even with guys that are returning, isn't always there. And going up against what I call a Rubik's Cube that you have to solve in real time with a gun to your head, the Baltimore Ravens offense, is just an insanely difficult task for any team with new blood on their defensive line, with question marks about their secondary, with rookies starting in key positions. And I think that even the best defense in the league going out there against the Baltimore Ravens would have issues dealing with run fits and Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and the RPO and the play faking that they can pull off to such a fine degree that no matter how good your players are, no matter how much athleticism you have in your front seven or your secondary, they're going to win. They're going to have their moments where they're successful. That's just the nature of the Ravens. You have to live and die with the fact that they're a formidable foe. They get paid too, and that's what it is. So I can understand that. But week one does not absolve foundational issues with your defense. And I think what you're seeing from this Buffalo Bills rushing defense, I should say, is more of the same issues. It's just the ability for offenses that have, whether it's the size in their trenches or whether it's just the technique in their trenches, to blow these guys off the line and create really good rushing lanes for their running backs. And in this case, Baltimore did that really well with Henry. And it's also the fact that because things are so dirty up front, it makes it just all the more difficult for your deeper players, such as Cole Bishop, to really take the proper, appropriate angles to make a clean play. And oftentimes are put in conflict against a guy like Derrick Henry, where you can't expect someone one-on-one to win that cleanly. It's Derrick Henry. He's extremely good at it. I also think another part of it was, again, Derrick Henry just being himself, because there were moments, Aaron, where I watched this really up close as possible, the defensive line in certain moments not totally get blown off the ball. There's a rep I saw where Deion Walker actually wins, sheds, and gets a hand on Henry, but Henry's just impossible to bring down when you're playing at him from his side and not in front of him where you can wrap your full body, and it doesn't even slow him down. And I just think that there's also that part of it where you do have to tip your cap to the running back in the backfield, who, when you manipulate this offense the way you can, if you're Todd Monken, he's eating right off that plate, and he's been as successful as ever with them. So it's a three-headed problem because it's week one. You're playing a juggernaut offense, but I do think there are parts of this defense that are concerning. And I don't think when we get into the Jets preview, we could talk about it more. I don't think this next opponent makes it any easier on you in any way, shape, or form. Maybe just for having not the same personnel, but I think the way they run and who's there is still good enough to be a threat. But the positives of it that I can walk away from, I do think that the pass rush potential for this team is very high after watching this game. Now, they didn't walk away from this game with 10 sacks, but I think the different types of fronts that they showed Baltimore, as well as some of the wins you saw from guys like Joey Bosa and from Ed Oliver, God willing, in the next couple of weeks, we'll get to that too. I think that Ryan Nielsen being on this team, something that I have been a huge fan of since it happened, is going to make a very positive impact on this team's ability to rush the passer. I just hope that they can close because, again, you saw another moment where they got there and just got burned on a huge third down play. But I think the potential for the pass rush to improve from last year is very much visible when you watch this game back. Even if they got punched in the mouth on a few run reps, I still think that penetrative nature of the Buffalo Bills is there and can be successful. So I did walk away feeling good about that. And then offensively, I like their skill group, Aaron. I really like the receiving core right now. I like what we saw from Keon Coleman. It wasn't a fully clean game, but he came through in very clutch moments and thought had some really nice wins. I like what I saw from Josh Palmer when it came to individual separation. Khalil Shakir was very good. And Dalton Kincaid, I thought had a very nice game, a game that he needed to have after last season's kind of question mark with the injuries and the rapport with Josh. It wasn't trailblazing. It wasn't world beating, but it was good. And it made me feel good about the player going into week 2. And I think that the offense, I really don't have that much concern over. It really is just a matter of Joe Brady's game feel being on point when you play really tough competition. And the second half of that game, when they were, everyone thought were down and out, they came through with, I would say, a multitude of explosive plays that ultimately led them to getting right back into that game and being able to come back. And I feel good about the fact that they proved that early. And even if the Ravens defense, wasn't settled in yet and defenses can get much tougher down the stretch, I think it just left me with this impression that this Bills offense, unlike last year at times where I thought, man, like not being able to beat man coverage consistently is really going to burn them when they face like stricter defenses. I think now I feel better about them against man coverage, but also in late game situations where you just need someone to get a bucket. I think they can do it. And that's just basing it off of week 1. But those are really all the takeaways I have from this game. Aaron, anything you want to add before we close the book on Baltimore Ravens week?
Yeah, I mean, one of the points you made about it is Baltimore and is week 1, and I agree. Those are like same points I'm making, but at the same time, like I am having a tough time wrapping my head around. Like, yeah, it's Baltimore. Yes, I expect them to score and move the ball up and down the field, but there was a point, dude, where it was going to be Derrick Henry having a career day after a career like he's had. Like he was having a career day through the first half. Zay Flowers has a career day. Like you can't be the doormat that allows for that type of performance, I feel like, on the defense. Sorry, hold on one second. Sorry, I had a cough there. My sinuses are terrible. I was telling Joe going into this, but yeah, I that's the thing that I think is most frustrating to me is like, I don't mind if the defense comes out and has a bad performance or a struggling performance or a back and forth performance or doesn't carry the team, but having performances where it's like, oh my God, we can't stop this. This is brutal at every level of the defense. That to me is where it becomes unacceptable. And then on the offensive side, I didn't really get to talk much. And to your point too, I think there's not much to say. It was pretty much as expected. The offensive line looked good. Josh looked amazing. Wide receivers looked pretty good. But most importantly, I think Keon Coleman showed that while he's not my favorite type of receiver, and I don't even know that he's the necessarily like type I wanted for this offense, he continues to show that Josh Allen trusts him. 1, Josh is willing to throw in the ball. 2, and 3, and probably most importantly, is he's like always making plays and he's always around the ball. Like him getting that tipped catch and being there is a lucky play, but you also put yourself in position to like be around the ball in the scramble drill and get yourself open and be there to make a play. And sometimes that's what it takes in the NFL. And he's showing me, I think that he is probably primed to hit the role that I thought Josh Palmer was going to be this year. And I think that maybe I was a little higher on Palmer and I should have given my, hype to Keon and my Keon hype to Palmer, which is both okay. I think that's both productive type wide receivers, but I think Coleman is turning into that guy for Josh Allen who can just be a guy. And I think we'll have to see it a little bit here again this week of some really good corner competition that you might not get a ton of separation on anyway. But I trust actually physically a guy like Keon Coleman can win in a lot of those situations. And then Kincaid, the stat sheet doesn't look fantastic, but honestly, I'm maybe even a little bit more excited. I think Coleman's stat sheet looked better and the box score looked better, but what I saw out of Kincaid gave me more hope for the potential rise of what we all want as a fan base to see in Kincaid. I think he looked fast. I think he looked aggressive. I think he looked willing to block, which was a really big thing that we wanted to see from this year. Immediately in week 1, he checked a lot of the boxes for me of things I wanted to see from him. And maybe most importantly, we saw a connection with him and Josh Allen on multiple big time throws down the field where it connected. And I think that was really the driving force behind the optics about Dalton Kincaid this offseason, and that maybe he's a bust. And like, again, the statistics aren't that great. I was arguing all offseason, Joe, that I think if you look back at some of the tape and if Josh Allen hits on 3 or 4 of some of those deep balls, the entire conversation about Dalton Kincaid is a really different conversation. And I think
100%.
You saw here early week 1 really positive signs that, dude, that touchdown was an incredible throw and catch. And for him to come down with that thing, the one before half to get the field goal, huge clutch play, getting into space, running across the field. And I'll tell you what, another guy that didn't get a ton of statistics in the box score, but when he did touch the ball, looked good and fast and ready to go. Dawson Knox, I thought, looked really good as well. And you get the big catch from Hawes, like a lot of things to be positive on the offense. But I think the 2 most important ones going into this season were Coleman and Kincaid. And hopefully week 1 isn't a liar for us because they both lived up to at least portions of the hype that they've been given going into this year.
You guys see that Jackson Hawes catch? You guys see Killdozer in the clutch?
Man,
you see
Josh Allen didn't give him a lot of choice. I think that ball was stuck in his shoulder pad and like just jammed in there, and Hawes had no choice but to catch that thing.
There's a chest X-ray post game with a football just in his sternum. But no, I think you make great points. And the thing I'll say about Dalton Kincaid before I go back to your Keon Coleman point, I've been on the record on this show of saying I had my concerns, but I did say too, like you alluded to, a lot of my concerns from Kincaid were individual for his performance, but also his rapport with Josh Allen, mainly a Josh problem of not hitting him down the field consistently. It was weird. And it was weird, especially when you saw how substantially worse Kincaid's down the field metrics were than other tight ends in the league. And also because of the fact that, again, maybe it was because he was injured, but he had such a wide alignment most of the time. It was like these opportunities are coming to you in limited sample sizes and you're not coming through, but it's also because Josh Allen's overthrowing you or underthrowing you. Like, it's so muddy that it made the evaluation of Dalton Kincaid like an asterisk whenever you're like, I'm concerned about him. Because the truth was there was always this possibility, and it's still, jury is still out there.
Sure,
but
sure.
Always this possibility that like a season where he really comes alive can happen if Josh just tweaks a few things. And to get that start, especially when you see him reel in a not easy pass to catch, that was a bullet, like an absolute seed from Allen that he puts right in his chest. It's funny, AQ, because I watched the highlights of Josh Allen's first ever game when he played Baltimore in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And I distinctly remembered I think it was 3rd and goal. He throws a seed over the middle to Kelvin Benjamin, and it goes right into Benjamin's chest and just pops out the back. Not through him, obviously, but through his arms. And you're kind of just like, damn, like back in the day when we watched that, we're hoping for someone that could just consistently come through in that moment. And seeing Kincaid do it in game 1 was really awesome, because like that made me feel really confident in what you're going to do in the red zone when you have tight windows and you need a guy to come through and make a clutch catch. And I think Kincaid's always been known to have his hands, and it just proved it even more there. So I was very happy to see that, and I'm very happy
he had the willingness to block is going to be huge for his development. Yes. I know people don't find that sexy, but if you don't have that, man, it's going to be tough to get on the field on this team.
Yeah, blocking is sexy. And I thought Kincaid did look a lot better. And you could argue maybe he was working through something, and that's why the blocking was poor at times.
He'll never be
worried about his blocking.
Good blocker. He just needs to be willing. That's really been my conversation with him. Is like, I want to see you getting in there. It doesn't have to be good, but you got to at least get a hat.
Well, because your good blocker. I mean, you could say Knox is a better blocker, but your good blocker just got drafted, and he is blocking his ass off.
Honestly, I thought the wide receivers, you look at that Cook play where Cook goes for whatever it was, 51 yards or something like that. You look at the way the wide receivers, Palmer and Coleman, were blocking downfield. They spring that. There's nobody even close to Cook. Like, he's fast. Yes, he's explosive, but he's got nothing but open space out there. So all positive things to see. There was definitely some negative on the offense, but we don't need to take time covering all that. I think Josh covered up those blemishes enough.
Yeah, and I think the negatives were kind of over-exaggerated. a little bit in the first half. I thought like some of the things people were complaining about, like the second and short run and then the third short run, like I was okay with just trying to get your yard there, especially in a game where you're playing Baltimore and trying to keep them off the field. So time of possession matters, limiting opportunity. I just don't think they worked. I was annoyed with the screen call on third and long. I personally hate those calls. I just feel like you're starting yourself at a disadvantage. Even if you think you have the numbers, that doesn't mean you're going to win it. And I don't like taking that risk. But it's also, again, you're respecting Baltimore's defense and what they could bring. That's part of the game plan. And in the second half, it rendered it moot because they put up 40 points. So like I can't sit here and critique it too much as there's little things I like to clean up. And of course, play action. I'd like to see that be
a little bit more. Yeah.
More. But that's a whole separate rant. But yeah, I think we've covered really everything from this game. And it was, again, just to put a bow on it, an awesome Bills win. It was an ugly game, but you get what I think is probably the greatest luxury, which is a victory Monday where you get to see everything you screwed up on. And not just like screwed up in a game where you won by 10 or 15 points. That game, like you probably shouldn't have won it. Your percentage was in single digits. It was actually under one at a point. And you still go to the tape and get to see all of that, but relish in a win, knowing that you can improve on these things while also having the opportunity to go 2-0 when you go to New Jersey, MetLife Stadium, to take on the New York Football Jets, a team that I don't think is a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. I think if you want to say anything about them as a whole, I don't think they have their defensive identity yet, but I think that will come. And I don't know when that will happen, but I don't think it'll take long with a good coach like Aaron Glenn. And offensively, Aaron, I mean, that rushing attack, I know people are going to think it's not Baltimore, so it's going to be easy, but Breece Hall on those outside runs is as lethal as he's ever been, in my personal opinion. I think he is an explosive play threat. I think the tackles on this Jets offensive line are really, really good. And why shouldn't they be? Each of them are back-to-back first-round picks with really good athleticism and power and strength. And the first step for these guys is really explosive. And this is a team that is going to try and run wide and stretch you out. And they can do it. And couple that with a guy like Justin Fields, who, yes, we can have our critiques about, on-field processing, which I think is a valid critique of his game. But this is a system now way more tailored, in my opinion, to his game to benefit him, where those blemishes are covered up because of a formidable rushing attack. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Aaron. And I would like to start on offense. Just give me your impression of this Jets team and the things you're watching out for that you think are in the Bills' favor and something that you worry about for them.
First, I want to say I'm super intrigued by Justin Fields in the New York Jets and what it can be. I'm sort of trying to, I hate comps, but something that keeps kind of coming into my brain is those Tyrod Taylor years of the Bills under McDermott, where like, I think this is an offense where if he's playing efficient, like we saw week 1, they can put up 30. If he's playing against a defense that's causing him to be more of a decision-making passer, I think that they could be a team that struggles to score 20 points in certain games. The game script's going to be very dependent for them. There's a path to the Jets winning, I think, more games than people think that they can win. But they're going to need to get hot. They're going to need a rally. They're going to need Fields to play similar, not exactly how he played week 1, but similar in an efficient manner where, the run game's working and he is just taking what the defense is giving him and maybe connecting on some of those explosives that, he can really stretch the field deep. But I think the problem for the Jets right now is this is an incomplete roster, right? This is a roster that has plenty of pretty glaring holes, some really fun high-end talent. I love Garrett Wilson's one of my favorite players in the league to watch. Like, I hate Ohio State, but
I was gonna say Michigan guy admitting
dude,
that.
once I'm watching Terry McLaurin right now on Thursday Night Football. I can't get enough, right? Ohio State receivers are fantastic, but dude, he's got nothing else in that room. Like, it's almost a disservice what they've done to Garrett to put him in a room with, the Bills want to talk about that everybody eats and not having, Jets have a true number 1, but then they have like 3 number 4s, right? There's nothing else behind him. And you got Ruckert, who again is a guy I liked in the draft process, but he's not some special tight end that's going to be a guy that you game plan for. So if you're a defensive coordinator, you're coming into this, like, I'm not saying it's simple because it's not, and they definitely present some problems for the Bills that at least on paper, have been historically problems for the Bills, right? Like a quarterback that can, be that threat in the run pass game and the read option game, that can be a threat. Although the Bills have done a decent job of keeping Lamar in the pocket. But this is a team that's got one wide receiver. I think that they're a team that it probably plays into the Bills' interest to kind of play some of that zone disguise looks, make Justin Fields think pre-post snap here for a minute, get him confusing some zone looks. Probably don't play a lot of man and allow him to take some of those deep shots and turn your back to Justin Fields as a runner. I think you can kind of keep him in. It's going to be the big thing is, can this team show up physically? Like you said, I really do like their tackles on both sides. Can the Bills show up physically and match that wide run game? Can the linebackers get to their spots? Can they look a little faster than they did a week ago? Can the safeties come play from downhill, play from depth, and come up and make the tackles you need to? Because we've seen Breece Hall, even when the Jets have been at their worst here, like during the Rodgers years and that offense is bad, we've seen Breece Hall, even behind bad offensive lines, do work to the Buffalo Bills. I think he's got an improved offensive line. But kind of my last comment on that offense and that, I think, one, their offense sort of plays into the Bills' hands on what Babbage and McDermott can do zone-wise, pre and post snap to Justin Fields when it is like known passing downs. But I also think that it kind of plays in the Bills' hands differently than the Ravens in that as good as those tackles are, I like the way the Bills' edge players match up against them, especially in the run game. I think Greg Rousseau is one of the best run defenders in the league. I think Joey Bosa is a really good, solid run defender with size. Obviously, he looked kind of bad in space against Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson makes everybody look kind of silly in space.
Yeah.
So the edge players aren't my concern. My concern is how I saw the linebackers look week one and them looking a little bit slow and not getting to those spots. Taron Johnson showed up this week with an injury. Maybe we see more Dorian Williams on some of these early downs where that they're going to try to establish the run. Maybe we can use this week to get a little bit more Dorian Williams involved. There's now these rumors about Ed Oliver and his potential injury. Obviously, him showing up on the injury report after having career game a week ago. But honestly, man, I don't know if I'm trying to cope here too much, but this might actually be an okay week to ride out. I don't know what the severity of an Ed Oliver injury or how many weeks that would extend into. But for this week against the Jets, I don't even know that it hurts you, because I think his style of play might actually be more of a negative against the Jets. Like he's not always the most consistent in staying in his run gaps and stuff. Like he's pursuing, he's over aggressive a little bit in the pocket, things like that. You might want to kind of be a little bit more conservative with these rush lanes and stuff, and just kind of try to hold them to situations where they're in a third and long, where you got to make Justin Fields beat you and you can confuse him pre and post snap. I think that's the plan to win, but I don't want Bills fans to be shocked if they come out and, put together a really nice scripted drive where they run right down the Bills' throats and the Bills aren't tackling them and the Jets score early, and it takes the Bills a half to really get this kind of figured out and settled into a game like this.
Yeah. It wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, when you talk about the, I guess, mismatches that the Jets can present to you, even though they don't have the deepest wide receiver room, just being able to get Justin Fields to roll out into space and having a separator like Garrett Wilson over the middle of the field, that's something that I think could be problematic no matter what part of the game it is, but especially on the opening drive. But yeah, I think everything you said is valid. And I do think that I have a lot of respect for this Jets team for what they were able to do to Pittsburgh last week. However, I also think, like, in the same vein of week one being a liar, that Pittsburgh defense is going to be quite good. And I don't think they gelled yet, because it was like a very rough game for them when it came to run defense and even tackling at points. I think that for the Buffalo Bills, to me, it's all about, just as predictable as this is going to sound, being able to shed, especially on those outside runs properly, and being able to keep things clean for your second level. I know that is like a beaten point, but really that's, to me, the game. And I say that because I think when we're talking about this matchup and what Breece Hall is and what Breece Hall has been able to do to the Bills in the past, it's always been that just explosive second gear he can turn on once he gets through the line. And I feel like the Buffalo Bills have just struggled mightily when the numbers are fewer and you have a back with full acceleration, a talented back with full acceleration, with taking proper angles and being able to wrap them up. And this was a problem a couple years ago, and I think it's a potential problem even now. I really got to see that defensive line right from the jump be able to shed accordingly, especially if they're going outside, keep things clean and be able to give space for Milano and Bernard or Dorian Williams, even if they go in any 4-3, to just recognize and attack. Because I'll tell you this, if they can, there's not a doubt in my mind that our linebackers could take over the game. Like, not a doubt in my mind. They are the types that I feel when you have proper trench play, they are just as opportunistic, as violent, as good at playing the ball as really any linebacker group in the league. I wouldn't say the best, but I'd say one of the best. I think you just got to help them help you. And it's really coming down to being able to just not get blown off the ball and create disruption up front. But where I'm really excited to see it is even with Ed Oliver's potential injury, which I'm going to be real, I don't personally think he's going to play. I mean, just hearing the fact that he was on a boot and scooter does not bode well for a 3 or 4 day turnaround. I could be totally wrong, but I don't like that.
Don't lie.
I don't like those odds. I think it's a good opportunity for TJ Sanders, because I think what you're going to have is him slide into that role immediately next to Daquan Jones. And I think what you're going to get is maybe more favorable opportunity for him, where if they don't double up both interior guys and he has a single matchup, this is where I think he wins very quickly as a rookie. Because I know there's a lot of his game that needs to be cleaned up, his anchor, his discipline in the gap. But I think if you're talking upfield penetrative nature of him specifically, and you don't have that double team, I think right then and there, that's a rep one for TJ Sanders potentially, if you have him aligned against someone like Simpson or Tippmann, wherever you decide to put him. Sure. So I would really like to see that. And I think that's possible. But I think just my big key for this defense facing that Jets offense, just from individual play of position and group, is going to boil down to that defensive line just being able to get off their blocks and just keep things clean for the second level. And as far as Bobby Babich, I mean, when I watched that Ravens game, I loved how much he was messing with the front. I mean, when we saw, as Eric pointed out earlier this week, and many people point out, the 6-1 that they were showing, I saw them bring their linebackers down. I saw some odd fronts. It was really fun to see them play around.
Cole Bishop blitz from 25 yards back.
I didn't love
very exotic. Very exotic.
Exotic does not mean good. I usually use it to kind of embody good, but not all exotic things are good. I don't know what the hell happened with that, but never do that again.
Eric talked about it. It was Ravens got to line too quick, and the Bills just kind of got caught. What they want to do pre-post snap didn't have a chance to, and I'm sure they put in some rules of hey guys, when this happens,
when you panic, just send it. It's oh my god, never do that again. But oh my goodness. I like the creativity with the fronts, and I think that could also help this run defense. Again, I think this Jets offensive line is young but very talented, and I think they're going to pose problems when it comes to that physicality that we fear for the guys that might not have the biggest frames.
Could stay healthy for them.
I know.
He's such a good player.
He is a good player who unfortunately is made of glass, but I still I like Joe Tippmann a lot. Sure. I liked him a lot in the draft process. I wanted the Bills to get him, and Simpson I don't think is a pushover, and I feel like you're just pairing that again with really deep drops for Justin Fields and rollouts for Justin Fields. And the one thing that I think we haven't talked about is the fact that this offensive coordinator for the Jets stems from that Ben Johnson Lions type and that Sean McVay tree, where you're talking about just a shit ton of motion and misdirection, and how that can, the Bills fare against it, which last year, yes, they won that Lions game. And yes, they were ahead for a majority of that, actually the entire game, I believe, but they still had their problems with just getting put out of space and giving up a lot of yards on the field. And I just did not like seeing it, especially when it came to the Rams. I'm not saying that this team has that same offensive potency, but I do think that those types of offensive coordinators this early in the season can give this defense trouble, especially if you're concerned about the safeties and their communication and being in the right position and taking the right angles if it comes to a run play, especially with a guy like Breece Hall. I do worry about that a little bit, but I think that can be quelled a bit quickly. Just seeing, again, I think there's going to be an improvement overall from Bobby Babich and how he calls this game, especially if this team can get pressure up front, which I think they will. I think that's going to thwart a lot of the kind of, you want to call it window dressing, that they're going to do pre to post snap and ultimately play in your hand. So those are really my biggest offensive things to look out for. Aaron, do you have anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it for me on the offense side of the ball. I'm not super worried. I think, like I said, I think this is an incomplete roster on the other side of the ball. And so I think they lack, I don't think they're toothless like maybe some of the other teams that I see in the AFC East right now. I actually said this week with Connor Rogers on, that I think the Jets could be a sneaky, like, in the hunt wild card team. Like I said, I'm comparing this team very much to that first year of Sean McDermott, where, you know, the defense might lack a little bit and in the back end of that defense, but if that pass rush can get going, like, they can just win enough games to kind of surprise some teams. But ultimately, these are the kind of games the Bills just have to handle business. I think the roster is better at every position across the board, and I think that's going to be true here when we talk about the other side of the football as well. And you got to just go out and show it. Like, there's every NFL team that we cover this year, Joe, is going to have some path to beating them, and the Bills are going to have to do something. But I think, you know, you said at the top of this that you don't think this is some pushover team, and I agree they're not a pushover, but I think on both sides of the ball, these teams are on different spectrums of the NFL right now.
I would argue for the Jets. I mean, I'm not as optimistic about who, as ironic as this is, because he played for the Bills for multiple years, but who is next to Quinnen Williams on the interior. But I do like the edge rushers for the Jets as far as pure pass rush threats. But what I think counters them is literally just Josh Allen's pocket evasion, which is just, it might be the single best in the league if it's not already determined that by everybody. He is just so good at evading pressure to a point where I like my fear for pass rushers on other teams has been quelled. Not saying that you shouldn't respect them, not saying that you shouldn't like account for them in your game plan, or if you're a fan, like look out for them. But Josh just makes it work and just somehow is always able to slip through to a point where really even the young, hungry, super talented guys, I feel like that's not something that I'm going to be as pressed over unless they're just consistently destroying your tackles. But Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown have just given you every reason to assume that they can hang in the game with the best guys. I've seen Deion Dawkins put people who are immensely talented in the dirt. I think Spencer Brown has come into his own over the past couple seasons. So as much as I have infinite respect for Will McDonald, who I think is emerging as one of the better young pass rushers in the NFL, I think he's tremendously talented. And Jermaine Johnson is just someone I've always liked since the Jets drafted him. I do think that Allen's individual pocket evasion is going to fare well, but we got to talk about really like, I think where the Bills can just take over this game is opposite Sauce Gardner. I think like Sauce Gardner, we know how good he is and the talent he possesses at his position and how much issue he has given Bills receivers in the past. But what I am wondering, Aaron, and I'll flip this back to you, and I want to give you the same prompt as before for defense, but this specific question to start. Opposite Sauce Gardner, how do you see it playing out as far as which receiver you think benefits from not dealing with Sauce Gardner covering them? I guess I want to say, like, do you think Sauce is going to maybe shade Keon Coleman? Is he going to shadow Josh Palmer? Like, how do you see that shaking out? And if it's either one of those two, what do you expect to happen for the rest of the secondary faring against this receiving core?
I don't actually think it makes much sense for the Jets to shade the Bills. I don't think the Bills have that guy. I think that makes sense for them when they're in a situation where they're going up, and, you know, Bills fans will probably kill me, but the Bills don't have that number one where I really feel like you need Keon covered by Sauce. Like, Keon's not going to generate a ton of that separation in man coverage. Like, we even saw a lot of his routes. There's a lot of conversation about what was the separation that Keon gained versus the separation that was created by just the zone or the route that he ran, right? Like, that's the conversation about Keon today. I think he can win any physical matchup, whether it's Sauce Gardner or whoever's out on him. I think the biggest threat to the Jets is Khalil Shakir. When and if healthy, I don't think they have anyone that can guard him. You're not going to put Sauce. Sauce isn't going to guard him. I think he's still the Bills' most dynamic wide receiving threat, and I think that he's going to have a field day of going up against this Jets secondary. I think that's probably the talking point that was missed the most this week. Is I do like that Bills skill set core, but the Ravens, like, they might have had some problems late in this game defensively. That's a really good defensive backfield. Like, the Jets, what they have, and you mentioned opposite of Sauce Gardner here, but I'll take it even a step further, attacking deep on these safeties. Like, I think this is a pretty poor safety room, similar to what people probably viewed the Bills as. And it's funny because I remember last year everybody wanted to replace DeMar Hamlin with Andre Cisco. The tape I saw did not look like an improvement. People were certain to me that Cisco would be. I think this is maybe even worse than that Damar Hamlin level of play right now you're seeing out of Adams and Cisco. I think Brandon Stevens, you mentioned across from Sauce Gardner, is just a ticking time bomb as to when that he's going to be out in favor of Thomas, the rookie. He's just not a guy that plays a style of defense that they want to play. And I think that's going to probably be the most interesting thing I'm looking to watch here on this one, Joe, is I think they want to play man defense. I think they've got the personnel to rush the passer and play some man coverage and get after you. But I don't think that Josh Allen's the kind of quarterback you want to play those games with, especially with this secondary. I don't think to the point you made about him being able to extend plays, there's nothing worse for a defense than a guy that can extend plays and you playing an aggressive style defense that has your back turned to him all day long. I think that just creates a terrible thing for the Jets. So I won't be shocked if we see Glenn and the Jets come out and play more zone than they play pretty much the rest of the year because it's Josh Allen. And that's where he's gotten to, is he is, in that realm of Mahomes and Lamar and some of these guys that you're so concerned with their special skills and what they can do to a game that you play completely outside of yourself. And before he even gets on the field, he's dictating the terms of how you're going to play the game.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, he's just at that point in his career where he has the gravity to manipulate what a defensive coordinator wants to do.
You can't blitz Mahomes, right? Like that's the thing on Mahomes. You can't blitz him. So teams that are really aggressive, they don't even do it. And I think Josh is getting that same way of like, you just can't play his receivers man-to-man in high percentages.
Which is nice to say. And I feel far more confident in this receiving core this season when it comes to faring better against man coverage. I think Josh Palmer, even a guy like Elijah Moore, Khalil Shakir across the field, and even Keon Coleman now to a better degree. I don't think he's all the way there yet. James Cook could do it. Ty Johnson out of the backfield if you want to use him as a receiver, which, by the way, just side note, that opening drive, I think it was the opening drive against Baltimore where they had 21, they had Pony. I was like, hell yeah, Joe Brady, get in your bag. I want more ponies this game. I love that. I just think it's such a fun wrinkle, especially with the types of running backs the Bills have. If you're using Ty Johnson as the threat of like a pass catching back and he just ends up blocking for Cook, like that is a cool little wrinkle and I would love to see it. But what I will say is just pulling up the tendency. In week 1, the Jets blitz the 6th highest in the league. So I think that, again, I completely agree with you that Allen has the gravity. I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to back off. And to be honest with you, I should have pulled up the numbers from the Lions game last year to confirm.
Yeah, but that was a totally different personnel, right? You had the best safety tandem,
of course,
in football in the Lions.
And I do agree with that. I mean, I can't not agree with it. It's the truth. But I think that Aaron Glenn is a guy who has his formula. And I do think he is going to try and bring the pressure. But it's really just a matter of how much. Is it 6th overall in the NFL, or is he going to kind of tone it down to about a 15th and really just try to manipulate the line pre to post snap and try to get you to think he's sending pressure and really just try to win with head games over actual execution? But all this to say, if he does send the pressure, I think Josh Allen's going to pick it apart. And he will avoid Sauce Gardner if you have to, which is a totally fair thing to do if the rest of your secondary can't hold up. It's kind of like how I feel.
A Shavers anytime deep ball touchdown if they're going to want to play a bunch of man coverage on us. I
might put money on Jackson Hawes this week, man. I don't know. I just feel like
I wouldn't do that. I don't advise anyone there, but
is he going to do the Quentin Morris thing where he
just makes big plays?
Only that, and nothing else besides
like
blocking.
6 of them
Someone's
a year.
Got to do it. But they come at like a huge time. It's never like a forgettable touchdown like that. That man came through in that Miami game in 2022 or 2023. No, 2022. Like, oh man. Okay. Anyways, I think that that's going to be a big key for me on offense for the Buffalo Bills. If Aaron Glenn does decide to send pressure, I don't think it's not going to work for them at all. I do think it's going to force Josh to get out of the pocket, but that's just the beauty of having him as your quarterback is even getting him out of the pocket is not a win for you because when he extends a play, I think he is debatably the best quarterback in the NFL at doing or at executing off script, but also I think the rapport he has with some of the guys on this roster, specifically a guy like Keon Coleman, is lethal for a team that can't wrap him up because Keon Coleman's profile as a receiver, especially on the boundary, allows Josh to be, I don't want to say a little more like careless with the ball, but he can put the ball in spots that just, you can't do this for other receivers. And I think that was proven in the Baltimore game with that boundary throw where Keon went up 20 feet in the air to make an unbelievable grab and still have the body control to come back inbounds with it. Like off script with that type of receiver is something that I feel like is an incredibly difficult thing to stop. And if that's happening on a rep where Sauce Gardner is not man-to-man with him and not covering him, I think that feeds right into the palm of the Bills' hands. So while I do think you want to win in structure, you want your run game to take control, you don't want to give them the luxury of getting their rushing attack any sort of momentum. So you want to control clock, and I expect the Bills to attempt that. I think that really it's going to boil down, at least from a coaching perspective, to what Aaron Glenn does with his defense as far as pressure rate. And if he sends a ton of pressure, is Josh Allen just going to continue the trend of picking pressure apart and just exploiting some of the matchups? So if he doesn't,
I'd pull a new plan in, man.
Yeah. If he doesn't do that, then you ask yourself, okay, so if the Jets are consistently rushing forward, but just showing pressure, how do we attack that? And even then, I think there are just matchups you can exploit with the separators on your team, like Palmer and Shakir. Shakir in that second level may be able to get distance against their linebackers, using decoys to take Sauce Gardner out of the equation and see if Brandon Stevens can hang with your opposing receiver, whether it's Palmer or Coleman. I think there's a lot to like. I also am very interested to see how they defend the tight ends in this game, because if Kincaid could separate, I think he's going to build off of last week's game, especially when you're talking about those sideline throws that I think just he has really nice body control and hands there as well, that I like to see Josh target him there consistently, because I feel like that's just a very difficult thing to defend when you talk about Kincaid's frame and, again, just the poise he has as a receiver. And I think the Bills can exploit that in this game. And I will turn it back to you, Aaron. Any other thoughts on the matchup on offense? Anything you think we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I think ultimately I keep coming back to there's so many holes on this Jets roster. I don't think that I will be shocked if they come out and play a style that is too aggressive. I think if they want to steal games like this against a team like the Bills that has Super Bowl aspirations, I don't know. There's probably two schools of thought. You can either stick to what you do and hope that that works and hope that you create some of that chaos and stuff like that, or you just kind of hope to stick around. I think the path for the Jets in a game like this is control the clock, right? Control the ground game, keep Josh Allen off the field, keep the ball out of his hands. But then when the ball is in his hands, keep him in front of you, right? Like don't I know you have these really good edge rushers, these young edge rushers, but you got to keep contained. You can't allow him to get out of structure to really beat you. I think their safeties are so poor that the threat of Josh Allen getting out of structure is even more vast against a team like this. So you almost have to get him. You almost want to take him so he's like throwing that first read and you're just wrapping and tackling and hoping to keep them within first down range and try to force a punt. It's almost the Bill style of defense, like force Josh to bend but don't break and hope that they make a mistake or hope that they, get a penalty that pushes them back and hope that your offense can have a similar performance that they saw last week to trade shot for shot with the Bills, and that Bills defense shows up like they did last week. I think that's the only and limited path for the Jets to stay in a game like this. But at the end of the day, I just don't think they have the horses to run with a Super Bowl caliber team like the Bills.
I definitely think when you look at the Jets roster, there are a lot of question marks that make you hesitant to say that they have like a highly. I want to be respectful when I say this because I don't try to like talk crazy on here, but really just like I think it's fair to say that you could expect the Bills to have a better chance of winning this game, like a higher probability. I think the Jets are just a team in transition. They have a new coaching staff and they still have a lot of roster building to do, but there are really nice pieces that can keep them in a game. And I think they're going to hang around. I just think the limitations of their receiving core are really their Achilles heel, especially if you get a team that can shut their running game down. And I think it's to a point where the Bills can sell out to shut down their running game early and often, stack the box, send the blitz. I feel like you win because you can either shut down Breece Hall in the backfield or Braylon Allen in the backfield, or you can fluster Justin Fields. And when it comes to off script, off platform, ability, while Fields can move, I think Lamar Jackson, the person you played a week before, is a superior off-script playmaker. And I think that Justin Fields can be pressured into making mistakes a bit more easily than Lamar can. I think Lamar has a lot more poise. So for that reason, I think that just sending the hounds and being able to stack the box and show that you're not going to let them run on you is a recipe for success, especially when you look at just, again, the targets after Garrett Wilson. That receiving core it's barren. And I'm not trying to be too disrespectful, but it just doesn't have the same types of players as Garrett Wilson, the same caliber of guys. I'm a big fan of Mason Taylor, the rookie. I think he is going to be quite a guy for them, but I don't know if it's going to be in week 2 of the NFL season of his rookie year. I think
Sure.
he might have some plays here and there, but it feels like to me it's Garrett Wilson's show, and really he's the one manning it. And even in that Steelers game, it's not to say he's the only one who caught any passes, but he was their primary focus.
Yeah.
He was their primary guy, and you get a good enough nickel corner like Taron Johnson, assuming he plays, or whether it's a linebacker that can just hang with him for a little bit.
I think you just bracket coverage him constantly. If you're a zone team like the Bills, just we're gonna keep 2 guys in zone on you all day long, and you might get some, but we're gonna wrap you up and tackle. Like, we're not gonna let you break us and force Josh Reynolds to have a career day.
And if you get yourself into a 3rd and long where it's a passing down, you have every reason to do it, and it's probably going to work out for you. So for me, I feel pretty comfortable, at least with the idea that they have a good chance to win this game. But crazier things have happened, and I think there are matchups. I don't give predictions, so I don't.
I was going to say, but they're a 6.5-point favorite on the road. ESPN, I think, has them 65-35 matchup predictor. If they lose this game, we got some big problems. The shows aren't going to be fun. The post-game show won't be fun. The next week's game won't be fun, unless it's like a weird, wonky loss of some kind. But this isn't a team. This is a team you should handle business. The AFC East is very weak this year. I actually think this might be the 2nd best team in the AFC when all the dust settles for the year. But you're talking about a team. I think the 2nd best team in the AFC East will be a 8-win team, maybe. Fighting in the hunt at the end of the year. So the big to prove they're still the Kings. That's my sign. Kings of the East. They are. This is a great opportunity to prove it. It's a great opportunity to put some of the optics and thoughts that we had from the past week and the poor performance we saw outside of the results. It's a good week to put some of that to rest here and move forward on the season. But go handle business, man. This is New York. It's the Jets. Come on. Like, they're fun. This was a fun start to the season for them, but the Bills can't make that any bigger than it is. Put that back in its place and let them know where they stand in this thing.
And it boils down to the kind of philosophy I have with watching the Bills and the Josh Allen tenure is that if you want to win a Super Bowl, these are the teams you have to beat, and you can't doubt it. And I think like the idea of a get-right game for the Bills defense, when you heard about Sean McDermott talking about how hard they were practicing, maybe even so hard that they managed to injure Ed Oliver, I think that speaks volumes to just how disgusted they were by the defensive tape and really want to improve it. And I think the fact that you're getting what you could call like a tad bit more of a light version of what you just encountered with Baltimore, not to the same degree of everything schematically, but rather just like what their strengths are and what your weaknesses seem to be. I think this is a great opportunity for you to quell a lot of fan worry by just, again, getting after this rushing attack, preventing it from getting out of hand, explosive, limiting damage, keeping them to field goals instead of touchdowns or stalls instead of any points scored at all. And you're gonna win people over with this defense, which I think is one that I won't say is, still retooling, but I still think it's in a bit of a transitional phase when you have all that youth there. So it's got time. It needs to gel, but this is a great opportunity. And I just looked it up, Aaron, because I was actually curious. So 2024, the Bills played the Lions. I believe it was week 14. I just had to look that up because I was so confused. The blitz rate for the Detroit Lions in that week was 62.5%, which led the NFL. Now, do we think it'll be 62.5% this week? Probably not. But if I have this right, because I have to, it's hard for me to look it up on the fly.
Was that the Thanksgiving game where Josh hit Diggs?
No, last year.
Oh, last year. Yeah,
last year. So I'm pretty sure it was week 14.
Week 14.
If you can remember it,
that was a wonky game. The offense got going second half, though, didn't they? Of that game,
they're Detroit's. Yeah, no. Detroit was down early in that game, but they led the NFL that week in blitz percentage. And I'm wondering if Aaron Glenn just tries his hand. If he just says, screw it, I want to send pressure. I don't know. It's just, I'm suspicious. I don't know.
I said that's one of the most interesting things I'm going to look at this week is like, does Josh Allen change what they want to do? Or are they going to stick to what we think they want to do, which is to get aggressive, to blitz and play man? I just think that's a huge mistake against Josh Allen. You got to have some hubris to think that you have an incomplete roster and a roster with some real liabilities, and that's the path to go up against the best football player in the world right now. Bold strategy, Cotton. It's a bold strategy.
Now I'm questioning it. I might have the week wrong, but it's so, like I said, when I look things up on the fly, this happens. So either way,
sure. I'm sure it was a high percentage. I don't remember the game specifically. So
yeah, either way, I think that that's going to be the biggest focal point for me watching on offense, and I think it's one the Bills can exploit. But ultimately, I'm excited for this game. I'm
same.
excited to see them come off this win and have the chance to go 2-0. I think that they are a team that, with their offensive firepower, they can go toe to toe with any defense and any team. And it's just another year of seeing what they got and if they could finally get over that hump. But it's games like this you got to win if you want to do it. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
feeling
agree.
pretty good. AQ, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I
Anything
think
you want to say?
you can almost like end the Jets season in week 2 too, like going 0-2. Both AFC losses, tough. If you're one of those, we know it from 20 years of trying to be an in the hunt team and break a playoff drought. Going 0-2 is not a great way to start your probability of breaking a playoff drought. And so the Bills have a chance to do something like that. I think the AFC East this weekend is really interesting with obviously the Patriots and Dolphins playing each other. I think that Dolphins is a super combustible situation that could blow up here before the season even starts. And the Patriots look more toothless than I thought. So this could be a nice, easy breeze through the AFC East. And this week 2 could show maybe the world just like how big of a separation there is between the Bills and the rest of the AFC East right now, and making it really kind of unfortunately, because I think it'll be used against the Bills, one of the weaker divisions in all of football.
Yeah, this is, in my opinion, they're, when you look at it on paper, one of their easiest paths to getting the East crown. I still have a lot of respect for what the Patriots could potentially be, but they have some faults they have to figure out on their offense. I think
Yeah.
that run blocking is brutal, and
Yeah.
it was very tough to watch
Defense
against
was
the Raiders.
terrible too.
Yeah, then the Raiders front is not a front that I think is top 5 in the league. Like they were struggling against what I would consider a pretty average defensive front, and it's, you kind of see this every year where there's a lot of lofty expectations, but ultimately there's just teams with holes in the back end of their roster that rear their ugly heads. Miami right now, I mean, we'll see what happens this upcoming week, but if they go 0-2, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer you could say Mike McDaniel is the head coach
I
of
just
that
want to
team.
know
Like,
that I was on this right from the jump when everybody was riding that Mike McDaniel wagon. He's such a genius, all this stuff. Like I give him he's definitely a smart offensive coach, but I called this guy a fraud from day one. I knew he had no clue what he was doing as a head coach of a football organization, dude. You could just hear it in the way he talks. I've met 100
yeah.
bullshitters in my life, and he is definitely one of those guys. I saw it from a mile away, and I'm the least shocked person on social media to see him just like bumbling through press conferences. Like that shtick is up. It's not cute when you're not winning and
Yeah.
everything's not like. I saw this whole playing out exactly as it's playing out, and honestly, I hope Miami keeps riding it. Greer's been there for what, a decade. He's been
He
there
is
for
the
like 20
longest
years. He was
tenured
a
GM in NFL without a playoff win.
perfect.
Yeah. That's
Keep
insane.
at it. You're doing a great
And
job.
also, I have a correction. It was week 15 and the Lions were 5th in blitz percentage. So I
Sure.
apologize. I got that wrong, but still top 10. Sorry. I just wanted
Still
to be
top 10.
right.
Yeah.
I didn't
Cool,
want to
man.
mislead our people. But yeah, man, I think this is a chance to just further cement yourself. And I think also too the fact that you could be 2-0 and knowing that the Ravens and the Chiefs and the Texans are all trying to play catch up, with the chance that one of those teams could potentially be 0-2. Like a win here isn't just like a feel good story of coming out of MetLife and beating the Jets. It actually does have, in my opinion, long-term implications when you talk about AFC seeding. If you want to get to the 1 seed, these are games you have to win too, especially with the advantage you have right now. So a big game. Divisional rivals are always big games to me in some facet, but I'm excited for it. And Aaron, I appreciate the heck out of you, man. You're an awesome guest. This was a really fun conversation. I appreciate you braving through allergies to be here with me
Yeah,
tonight.
no problem, man.
And I want you to, right now with the floor, tell the people what you got going on, where they can find you, anything you want to plug.
Yep.
Have at it.
Yeah, anyone that's offended by my allergies, it's going to be a long like 2 months for those people because it's here for a little bit. But no, everyone can find me Cover One Buffalo podcast every Wednesday, or depending on the Bill schedule, once a week. We do a preview show with a guest, Greg and I, and then obviously on the post game show live as soon as we can get on the internet after a game. We'll be on there live doing a post game reaction show. But it's not about me; it's about the Cover One brand as a whole. There, everybody here, Joe, you, Eric, Anthony, the guys at Air Raid Hour, everybody out here is doing a really great job bringing content. Chris Chouse with the Fantasy Channel. So make sure you're just following us everywhere, all your socials. Just search Cover One, YouTube, find us, subscribe, do all those things. It matters a ton. And the guys are grinding right away here this season, making some great content. So super proud of the team, and hopefully you show your support with likes and comments and all that good stuff to help us for free.
Absolutely. And Aaron, again, I appreciate you. If you guys are somehow not aware of his show, but you're subscribed to the network, then check out his show too. Him and Greg Thompson, they do a killer job. And as well as the rest of the content that we have on our network, it would be greatly appreciated if you checked it out, shared it with your friends, Bills fans, football fans, whoever is looking for content. We got it right here for you. Check the description of this video for the sign up for the One Pass. If you are interested in becoming an insider today, that One Pass is the lifeblood of our network, as it allows us to have the access to all of the resources that we use on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute, second-to-second basis for all of our content. We appreciate all of the people who have signed up and all of the people who are going to sign up in the future. Before we sign off tonight, I just have to let Aaron know that the odds for our matchup are 62% in my favor. That means nothing, but I'm feeling good right now.
Yeah,
we'll see if that
it's tough.
changes in
Jaden
time.
Reed going out with 1 catch and 0 points and like
Yeah.
holding his shoulder in the first quarter. Not great for my team. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe it could be a long week for me here. And Jaden Daniels not looking great. Not a great first half for.
I just
my
need a
franchise
touchdown to
QB.
Zach Ertz. Just a touchdown to Zach Ertz. That's all I need, because
There
Zach
you
Ertz
go.
is the best flex ever. But no, man, thank you again. And for everybody who joined in, again, I appreciate you. Your like is greatly appreciated. This is going to be, you're going to be seeing it on Friday. I know there's been a schedule shift. I was telling Aaron offline. Big changes, if you couldn't tell. Background's different, as you all know, from the 6-hour live stream where I was in the funeral parlor. But with work schedule changes, the show's been going on Thursdays and recording and coming out on Friday. So if you are someone that was, couldn't check me out on a Tuesday, I hope this gives you the luxury to check me out on a Friday and have access to the show a little bit easier than you used to. But I appreciate all of you for watching. Let's hope for a good, clean game on Sunday with the Bills win. Again, subscribe, like, share, but we are going to say good night. We are going to say have a great rest of your evening or day. And as always, friends, go Bills. We'll see you soon.